Japan, the 8th century AD. A young monk named Saiki Mao was deep in the mountains doing his spiritual training when he decided to enter a small cave called Makurudo and meditate. While inside, he had an encounter that he would later credit with bringing him enlightenment. And he emerged from the cave as Kukai, a high priest who would become one of Japan's most important historical figures.
Many Buddhists have reported enlightening experiences in caves, and one of the most famous stories involves the monk Kukai. He is the individual who brought esoteric Buddhism, Shingon Buddhism, to Japan from China. And according to his autobiography, he was meditating in a cave at Cape Maruto, and he had fixed his eyes on the morning star. The morning star flew towards him, entered his mouth, and in front of him he saw an image of the Bodhisattva Akasagarbha. And Akasagarbha in Japanese is known as Kokuzo Bosatsu. So we have this spiritual being surrounded by light. Perhaps he even used the light to travel there.
After this encounter, Kukai suddenly had great wisdom, including the ability to comprehend 85,000 Buddhist texts. But what happened inside Makurudo Cave that allowed Kukai to enter this enlightened state?
Kokuzo appeared to Kukai in the cave when he was in his trance and basically informed him that he was a conduit to the universe, and it channeled through his body and he could tell you anything about the stars, the planet. It was almost as if he were tapped into a database.
Some even perceive that the cave is similar to a womb. So a human being enters as a normal mortal. They engage in ascetic or meditative discipline within the cave. And when they exit the cave, they're no longer a typical mortal, but they're more akin to a saint or even Buddha.
But could the enlightenment found inside caves be coming from an extraterrestrial source inside the Earth? Some ancient astronaut theorists say yes, and suggest evidence of this might be found in the fabled nirvana known as Shambhala and the sky caves of Mustang in Nepal.
Some say Shambhala is a mythical city that's located somewhere in the mountains in the Himalayas. Its inhabitants are supposed to be fully enlightened beings who have access to a great amount of technology, which comes from the enlightenment itself.
Buddhism has always seen caves as more or less a conduit to altered states of consciousness, to other civilizations that may exist inside the Earth.
The sky caves in Mustang are interesting because there are 100 or so man-made caves carved into the faces of cliffs, and are only accessible by these huge vertical shafts. And inside these caves we have huge statues of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas.
And Buddhists are not alone in this belief. Hindus also revere caves as places where monks can go to find wisdom.
The sadhu are Indian holy men who basically leave a life of deprivation, self-imposed exile in caves, so that they can enter these altered states of consciousness. They definitely believe that caves are a conduit to communicating with non-human entities.
It's almost as though they're opening a doorway into a spiritual consciousness in which they're able to communicate with these divine beings and hopefully become divine themselves.
Other important figures throughout history also attribute their life-altering epiphanies to mysterious encounters that happened in caves.
In the life of the great artist and inventor Leonardo da Vinci, he had some unusual but important experience at the mouth of a cave. Right after that, he disappeared for 2 years. And right after that, activity that was awesome. And in science, he invented the first self-propelled vehicle and imagined flying machines.
Joseph Smith wrote that an angel appeared to him at the name of Moroni in the year 1827. Told to Joseph Smith he should go to a certain little hill, he should put a stone plate away, and inside he would find a cave, and in the cave he would find unknown writings.
As all good Mormons know, he found them golden tablets which contained a vast amount of data.
Why are there so many accounts of humans having enlightening experiences inside caves? Is there something about caves themselves that facilitate such extraordinary experiences? Could it be that these people are coming into contact with an extraterrestrial presence? Ancient astronaut theorists suggest that cosmic knowledge may be stored in the very walls of these caves themselves, and that the proof can be found in Central America, 1,000 feet underground. Chihuahua, Mexico, April 2000. Miners excavating 1,000 feet below the mineral-rich town of Nika drill through a cave wall and make a stunning discovery. A glittering cavern full of giant crystals that are 500,000 years old.
The Cuevas de Cristales, or the Crystal Cave of northern Mexico, is a very unique site. And we're talking crystals as big around as a car that stretch from the floor to the ceiling of the cavern. It's a remarkable thing to see.
The incredible cave of the crystals in Mexico was just accidentally found. And the discoverers were completely astounded with these giant gypsum crystals. It's fantastic. And it reminds a person of the Fortress of Solitude of Superman, where all of this information is encoded into these giant crystals.
Now, the significance of this is extremely important to the indigenous people of northern Mexico, in fact, all of Mesoamerica, in that the crystals themselves were considered sacred. They vibrated, and they believed there was also some properties involved in crystals that would provide them a way to communicate with the gods. Many ancient myths tell us that there are magical apparatus that are made out of rock or stone or crystal.
If we look at the properties of many of the caverns and caves, we see that there's usually some type of lining of crystal or quartz. And we know that crystal has a vast ability to store information. Maybe some of these caves are actually storing information. And that ancient people who meditate in caverns are tapping into this knowledge.
Like caves that are rich in quartz or crystal, really possess some special power that our ancestors were aware of. Ancient astronaut theorists point out that the scientists today are discovering that crystals do, in fact, have very unique properties.
Quartz and other crystalline structures oscillate at incredibly well-defined frequencies when you hit them mechanically, and they can be activated electrically through an effect known as the piezoelectric effect. So you can put quartz in a watch and use it as a very accurate time-keeping device. So quartz could be used in conducting or communicating certain signals.
In the Silicon Valley of California, quartz is used to manufacture the small integrated circuits found in computers because of its strong semiconducting properties. Computer chips are also made with the form of the mineral quartzite, which is a highly condensed form of quartz. Today, computer engineers are working on how to physically manipulate crystals so that digital data can be stored inside them forever. The media has dubbed these hard drives of the future Superman memory crystals.
So Superman is one of our superheroes who came from outer space. He came from the planet Krypton. It was in the process of being destroyed, so his parents saved him and sent him in a spaceship to our planet. One of the interesting things in the Superman story is that his father was able to program a crystal that traveled with him that he was able to use to construct the Fortress of Solitude from. And it was basically a crystal structure, essentially a cave, where he could both get away from things and he could use the crystals in there to get information. So one of the things that's interesting in the Fortress of Solitude is the way that the quartz technology or the crystal technology seems to be underlying everything. And so a future that we're looking at is using light in computing. You have to figure out ways to trap light and to store it, basically to create bits on and off and have the light last long enough that the signal stays there in the memory.
Was the power of crystals something the ancients not only knew about, but utilized by building structures that would harness and transmit it?
A lot of the pyramids had either granite or some type of crystalline surface. For instance, Giza, those great pyramids were topped with an obelisk made of shiny granite crystal. And when we look at an obelisk, it very much resembles some type of power rod, maybe a Tesla coil. Ancient times, the obelisk was always a symbol of power. Maybe this wasn't just emotional power, but actual physical power that was being harnessed by these objects.
Crystals are transformers. They hold energy. And indeed, caves are thought of as hotspots where you have earth energy emerging from the planet.
If scientists today are looking into the technological uses for crystal, is it possible that there are extraterrestrial civilizations that have already mastered this technology? Ancient astronaut theorists say yes, and that the mineral properties found inside caves have enabled some of the world's most astounding miracles. Bethlehem. The Church of the Nativity, built around 330 AD by the first Christian Roman Emperor Constantine, is one of the oldest continuously operating churches in the world. Having survived invasions, regime changes, fires, and earthquakes. Many claim that the church is protected by a higher power because it sits above a cave that some Bible scholars believe to be the true birthplace of Jesus Christ.
There are many books about the story of Christ's life, Jesus' life, which never made it their way into the Bible. And one of them was called the Proto-Evangelium of James. And in that story, Joseph and Mary are approaching Bethlehem. Mary says, I'm going to give birth. And he thinks for a minute and says, I know a cave near here. And they are met at the entrance to the cave by a brilliant light. And when the light dissipates, there's Mary holding Christ in her arms. And if you look at Byzantine painting, the Nativity is always represented in a cave.
According to the Gospel of Luke, Mary gives birth and places the baby Jesus in a manger, but no actual location for the Nativity is given. It is known, however, that caves at the time were commonly used as shelter for livestock.
Going back to the 3rd century, they started this idea that he was actually born in a cave. But then they also described the tomb of resurrection as a cave, as a simple hollowed out room that had this circular stone at the entranceway.
The Bible does make a point that when Christ is taken from the cross and he's buried in a rock-cut tomb.
There does seem to be a mystical environment here, this idea of a cave being a place where someone who is of divinity comes and someone who is of divinity leaves. So it's almost as if passages are happening in caves.
Constantine's building program, churches in the Holy
the site of Jesus' birth. He built a church over the site of Jesus' crucifixion, where the Church of the Holy Sepulchre stands today. And he built a church on the Mount of Olives over a cave associated with the site of his ascension into heaven.
Is there some significance to the fact that both Jesus' birthplace and resurrection may have occurred inside caves? Some ancient astronaut theorists say yes, and claim there may even be physical evidence that what happened within these caves was something other than miraculous.
The Shroud of Turin is certainly the most important relic of the resurrection. This extraordinary imprint of the crucified body on this cloth that no one has ever been able to accurately explain or reproduce.
When Jesus was in the tomb, and some believe there was an intense burst of energy which created what we now call the Shroud of Turin, some form of radiation which was very intense and powerful.
We know with 21st century technology that the Shroud of Turin is a first century garment. And we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that it could not have been painted or in any way created. So the Shroud of Turin gives us this exceptional piece of evidence that something powerful happened in that tomb.
And when people came to see him the next day to view his body, he was gone. Two shining beings, non-human beings, met these two witnesses outside the tomb and informed them that Christ had arisen and that he had departed.
It's possible that that cave was acting as a sort of a gateway or a portal, because in many of these stories, the caves link earth and heaven.
Could the Shroud of Turin really be evidence that something of a technological as well as a spiritual nature took place in the cave where many believe Jesus was resurrected? Reports of humans encountering the divine in or near caves come from all corners of the globe, going back thousands of years.
We look at the Prophet Muhammad at Mount Hira. He's in a mountain in a cave. He's praying and meditating. He hears the voice of Gabriel. Iqra, Iqra, which means to recite, recite. And so he recites the Quran. According to the Hebrew tradition, Prophet Elijah, who existed around 9 BCE, lived in a cave. According to Greek mythology, Zeus was born in a cave. And caves are often understood in religious traditions to be gateways to the underworld. So caves are worshipped throughout the Mediterranean, usually because a god is associated with that cave. A god is worshipped in a cave or in a grotto.
Could the stories of Zeus, Muhammad, and even Jesus be evidence that the world's subterranean caverns might be portals that connect us to other realms, as ancient astronaut theorists suggest? Perhaps the answer will be found with new cutting-edge technology. This
เลี้ยวขวา
为什么不可能 ，bro？ Bedok Simpang classic example，OK？ Textile Center 是另外一个，因为 government propose ERP2 出来，所以他们这些全部没有换到。By right， 我们今年全部应该用 ERP2 了，但现在就 to fucked upness of the government and everything， 所以现在 stuck 住。连这些旧的没有 update 懒哦。Bro， 它是那个 cheap 的 SIM 卡，你车新没有用 ，but IU 是新的，but 你还是要插那个 cash card 进去那个 machine，cash card 旧的就可以了。 它跟 IU 没有关系。你相信我，有些没有这个的，你要 physically 插那个 cash card 出来，真的没有骗你。你多久没有去摩多新邦了？
撩晒。
就是这样咯，他们有在这个新的那个 reader 在那边，你可以用你的新的 cash card 带在上面的，好像可以会这样。
改天我走过一个拍给你看，你就懂我在讲什么。
你不会为了你讲的一个情况来特地跑去 Brother 去买一个 chip。我一年去。
Bro， 我不是跟你讲了，more than 一个 CBD 最少有2个 car park， 我懂了的，有这些东西的。其中一个就是 SBF Building 隔壁那个。跟你那我就是为了这个鸡掰懒胶 chip， 我跑了2-3条，连找到一张差1个月就 expire 的 SIM 卡，不然我那天出不了 car park 也能不能拉嘟烂呢？因为你只是 drive for use， 你没有进出 car park，so that's why 你没有中这些东西。你进出那些 car park， 你就懂我在讲什么了。跟他什么蓝都跟他赶出来。
Not visible to the naked eye. Santa Monica, California, 2014. Here at X-Res Studio, visualization artists Greg Downey and Eric Hansen are pioneering the use of photogrammetry and special effects software to assist archaeologists in the global effort to decipher ancient cave art.
We use a combination of techniques from the fields of computational photography and graphics in order to help the archaeologists reveal information difficult to see just with basic vision when you're there.
The team recently traveled to the Grand Canyon to compile a massive, in-depth photographic compilation of the collection of strange petroglyphs known as the Shaman's Panel.
We were drawn to the panel for two primary aspects. One was the rich layering of the anthropomorphic figures, and two was the kind of evocative, surreal nature of their composition.
This cave is maybe like 5 or 6 feet deep. So by using a photogrammetric technique, we're able to get the detail across the entire painting.
The nice thing about this technique is we can separate the different dyes and minerals that are used. And in this case, now we can kind of see the layering expressed. We can see figures that are simply lost by the naked eye.
Yeah, that brings it out. Yeah, it's a complete difference.
Could modern techniques one day uncover even more details about what ancient people really saw and hope to communicate with rock art? Some ancient astronaut theorists believe one compelling clue that modern researchers might be on the right track can be found, oddly enough, in contemporary America. March 1945. Amazing Stories magazine publishes an article entitled, I Remember Lemuria. But according
OK， brother 还有麦就可以了。等下我去设计一个 list 这种蓝胶SIM卡的那些 cash card 给你看，你就懂我在讲什么啊。西北多 shopping center 还是在用这些的咯。你中过一次，你就头痛苦了。你很想把那个 barrier ram 下来，又不是 cash card 没有钱。
This is the first piece to appear in the science fiction magazine that is not fiction at all. The actual account of his own alien abduction.
Richard Shaver was a man who surfaced decades ago with a story of underground entities that were very hostile to the human race. Terrible creatures that would kidnap and kill members of the human race.
They were the first inhabitants of planet Earth. When the sun became radioactive, these people could no longer live on the surface. Some left in their spaceships, others went underground.
Could Richard Shaver's account of underground extraterrestrials abducting humans be true? Shaver proposed that the alien race that once populated the Earth had developed highly specialized equipment that allowed them to embed multifaceted imagery into stones.
Richard Shaver believed that he had made the greatest discovery in the history of mankind about the true nature of intelligent an original Shaver photograph of a rock book. And this multi-dimensional way of making images in the rock books was something that Shaver saw as a real sign of the superior intelligence of the ancient races. And Shaver believed that these weren't mere rocks with random patterns, that these were actually deliberately manufactured artifacts by the ancient races who had been here 30,000, 100,000, who knows how many years ago.
Like Richard Shaver, have actually discovered real physical evidence that extraterrestrials have been here on planet Earth and might still be here today.
Whether or not Richard Shaver's stories are true, it does dovetail with legends across this planet of a race of beings that either created humankind or were at least our ancestors that had a superior technology.
If we're looking for extraterrestrials, ironically, the heavens above might not be the best place to look. We should perhaps even be looking deep below our feet.
In some ways, exploring the underground cavern world of planet Earth is the final frontier.
Is it possible that some of the world's most mysterious caves really are home to extraterrestrial beings? Could it be that the knowledge of the universe has been left for us to discover right here on Earth once we have the technology to unlock it? And might the crystals found within cave walls not only tell us where we came from, but even provide the technology to access the most distant corners of the universe? Perhaps one day we will find proof that there is life beyond our planet by searching deep within it.
Liếu ซ้ายแล้วเลี้ยวขวา
อย่าเปียวอยู่ไว้นะเปียวอยู่ไว้นะ let's not take
กลับ
out
รถ